Dr. Joseph Henry Gilmore was a very, what's that word? Oh, it says versatile. Dr. Joseph Henry Gilmore was a versatile and scholarly young man. In 1862, at the age of 28, having graduated from Brown University and Newton Theological Seminary, Gilmore was ordained as a minister in the American Baptist Church. His first pastorate was at Fisherville, New Hampshire, shortly after his ordination. Pastor Gilmore traveled to Philadelphia to visit some colleagues, and while there he was asked to speak at a Wednesday evening prayer meeting at the First Baptist Church. Choosing the 23rd Psalm as his text, Gilmore spoke to the congregation about God's leadership and guidance in every area of life. As he quoted the verses of the familiar Shepherd Psalm, he was drawn to the second and third verses, which state, in part, "He leadeth me beside the still waters. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake." After the meeting, the visiting pastor was invited home with his host, Deacon Watson. Later that evening, as the two men continued discussing the theme of the message, Gilmore reported the following events. During the conversation, the blessedness of God's leadership so grew upon me that I took out my pencil, wrote the hymn, just as it stands today, handed it to my wife, and thought no more about it. If the self-effacing pastor thought no more about it, he was alone. Mr. Gilmore thought the verses had both literary and spiritual merit, and submitted them without her husband's knowledge to a paper published in Boston called The Watchman and Reflector. When the poem was published in the paper in 1863, William Bradbury, a well-known composer of early gospel hymns, read it, liked it, and set it to music. William Bradbury is the fellow whose song I just sang the other day here on Family Bible Time. William Bradbury wrote some great hymns like Just As I Am, and also Jesus Loves Me. 2 years later, in 1865, Pastor Joseph Gilmore was called to minister at the Second Baptist Church in Rochester, New York. It's just up the road from me. Prior to the service, he entered the sanctuary and began thumbing through a hymnal. To his astonishment, the pages fell open to He Leadeth Me, the hymn poem he had hastily penned 3 years earlier. He was not displeased, yet wondered who had written the two-line refrain with which the hymn ends. He leadeth me by his own hand, he leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me. The mystery of the refrain was not solved until the death of the author's wife several years later. As he went through her papers, Gilmore came upon his own handwritten text of He Leadeth Me. There, clearly penned in his own writing, was the two-line refrain. It would seem that the title of Gilmore's poem was more prophetic than even he had realized. After the publication and popularity of this first hymn, Gilmore went on to attain success as a lecturer, university teacher, textbook writer, and preacher, but his memory is kept alive today by none of these achievements. A small bronze plaque placed in the cornerstone of the office building that now stands on the site of the First Baptist Church in Philadelphia remains his public memory or memorial. Below the words of the hymn's first stanza, the inscription reads, "In recognition of the beauty and fame of this beloved hymn, and in remembrance of its distinguished author." He leadeth me, O blessed thought, O words with heavenly comfort fraught. Whate'er I do, where I be, still 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me, by his own hand he leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me. Sometimes mid scenes of deepest gloom, sometimes where Eden's bowers bloom. By water still or troubled sea, still 'tis his hand that leadeth me. Lord, I would clasp thy hand in mine, nor ever murmur nor repine, content whatever lot I see, since 'tis thy hand that leadeth me. And when my task on earth is done, when by thy grace the victory's won, eve's death's cold wave I will not flee, since God through Jordan leadeth me. He leadeth me by his own hand. He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by God's hand he leadeth me.